So welcome riders to day 4 of our virtual challenge. I feel like with some of the distances that we've clocked up this week that we're in week 2, but we are week 1, day 4, and thanks, Stu. I see it's 31 degrees. That's lovely. I think that was Stu. Yep, 6 a.m. 31 degrees. Thank you for that. It's a lovely, probably 8 degrees here today. So good afternoon, everyone. Today we're continuing to make our way down the Gulf of Thailand. We're still on our way to Prachuap Khiri Khan, and this is stage 2 of our 4-leg stage. So the second day on the Thailand bike ride is it's 122 k's, and we've broken it up into 4 legs for you guys. So we'll be traveling today, tomorrow, and Saturday. We will finish in Prachuap Khiri Khan. So as I was saying, as people were jumping in, we're seeing some amazing Ks getting clocked up, and collectively, and this blows my mind, collectively the group have covered a distance of 12,000 kilometers in 4 days. Yeah, amazing. It's so cool. So we're certainly getting people moving, which is awesome. Fundraising's heading north of $60,000, which again is fantastic. We'll have a firm update on that tomorrow, as well as the front runners for the King and Queen of the fundraising mountain. So stay tuned. We'll give you those updates tomorrow. Since our chat this morning, we've had the Murray River Riders have hit 250 k's. They've taken the lead over the Odd Couple, who is a father and daughter team, but I know everybody's working pretty hard to catch up there. On the individual leaderboard, we've got Tom and his dog Regazzo making their way down the coast together. And we've got Nick from New Zealand and Valerie from Canberra, who are all close to hitting that 200-kilometre mark. So well done, guys. Outstanding effort. So today I'm joined by ANZ founder Peter Baines and Kelli Jackson, who you are absolutely going to love. Kelli describes herself as an unassuming middle-aged accountant who became an accidental world unicyclist. Here to chat to her about all things unicycling and the amazing adventures she's been on is Pete. So I'll hand it over to you, Pete.
Thanks, CT, and thanks, Kelli, for joining us. It's great to have you, and you're coming to us from Canberra.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, I'm in lovely Canberra today. It's nice and cold.
Yeah, we had one of the guys on this morning who joined us, and as I was saying, each of these sessions are recorded, and then what we're finding is the group are logging on at a time to suit them to listen to the audio and so forth. So, and the guy that we had this morning, he actually ran the ride that we're on a couple of years ago, and he loved the flatness of the roads. And as you can see on the footage there, this might be something that when you look at the topography and the incline, the quality of the roads, maybe that appeals to you as a unicyclist, does it?
Yeah, this is ideal unicycling road, actually. It'd be great to be on this right now. Yeah, it's perfect.
Well, we'll get to the challenge and we'll get to your story, but perhaps as you make your way around the globe, cycling around on a unicycle, perhaps, you know, you've got to cover Thailand at some point. So maybe it makes sense to join up with us and come and do the ride when we're over there at some point.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Peter. I might be a bit slow, that's all. I'll probably be the last person, but...
That's all right, it doesn't matter. Ours is an inclusive experience. It's not about where you finish, it's just finishing together. So, but we'll come back to that. Now, Kel, there's a few rules that I'm imposing as the interviewer. And that is, as the interview goes on, your answers need to be longer, because as you can see, I'm writing and I'm going to run out of breath the further we go. So if you can help me out by expanding on the length of your answers, it'll mean that my questions become fewer. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's no worries, Peter. Got that.
Thank you. So, cycling's not new to you. As a teenager, you were somewhat of a cyclist on two wheels. Is that right?
Yeah, so I used to be in the Cairns Cycling Club as a teenager, and just kind of got into road cycling, and I spent a lot of my youth just riding around Cairns. It was one of my favourite things to do as a youngster, just jump on my bike and much to the kind of disgust of my mum, or fear rather, I'd ride up the Kuranda Range with trucks, or I'd ride to the Binder, or I'd ride out to the beaches. So yeah, I spent a lot of time just riding normal two-wheel bikes.
And was it just for yourself, or did it go beyond something of just to get out and see the local area? Was it something you took on with a bit more depth and passion and enthusiasm?
I think it was just that sense of freedom as a teenager, you know, just being out on the bike and getting around the local area. I used to compete on the sort of weekend races, and I used to compete in the occasional triathlon, but it was really just the pure joy of being on the bike, I think.
I think it's something that when we talk to people who ride, and for us that when we head across to Thailand, I think riding on a bike, it just opens up communities and places you go that you just don't get to in a car.
Yeah, that's it. You just kind of tend to see so much more. You travel that bit more slowly. You really appreciate the effort that you put in too to get from one place to another. It's just such a rewarding way to travel. And, you know, it's a great way for the environment too, of course.
So there was a gap in time, and you describe yourself, your words, not mine, as an overweight accountant who smoked. So there was a gap between when you were competing as a two-wheel cyclist to being reborn as an athlete. What kind of time frame were we talking about in that period?
I think about the time I went to university, like most people, you sort of discover beer rather than bikes. And then I was sort of married and had a child, and you know, when you're a new mum, it's easy to lose the hobbies, you know, that make you. Then of course you get a mortgage and you start to kind of, some of that stuff, it's easy to drop off, and you just get into that whole working career family lifestyle and forget sometimes about what's important to you, or those activities that you really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and it can just very quickly pass along. Next thing you know, you're checking out nursing homes and thinking where you're going to end up, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much that's it. That's right. So I mean, I always had bikes, and I sort of got back into mountain biking maybe in my sort of late 20s, I suppose, but not riding to the extent that I did in my sort of teenage years. And it was only sort of the occasional social ride. It wasn't anything serious, and I certainly wasn't doing any training. And then of course there was just a long period of career, and once you're sitting on a chair in an office rather than a bike seat, you know, you tend to put weight on, and I think I took up smoking at some point, which was a terrible idea. And so I just kind of found myself in my 40s being overweight and unfit and a smoker. Yeah.
Geez, I reckon if we did a poll right now of those on the call, there'd be a lot of us put our hands up, and you know, your journey of sport, then business, life, family gets in the way, and it kind of pushes pause on all of that stuff. And it's, you know, a friend of yours and mine, Jen Brown, that we had on Tuesday, and it was one of the questions talked to Jen about was how, and particularly for women who, you know, are mums and working in home, working out of home, have all of these extra demands, is how do they find the time to do the things that's so important for them? And so I think what you've just described would resonate with a lot of people on the call.
Yeah, I think it's just a common kind of mum story, or not even mum. I mean, you know, even if you're trying to get your career established, you work longer hours, Yeah, but it's just so important not to lose those connections with that stuff that you love, and especially when they're healthy activities like cycling as well.
Yeah, we seem to go from 2 wheels, we get 4 wheels, and then we you know, put the bike in the garage and let it go, and then we don't pull it out for a long time. And a lot of the people that we have on our bike rides in Thailand, I think it's that real reclaiming of something for themselves. And so many who come across and ride with us for the first time are exactly where you just described. And the difference is, they're on 2 wheels. So I want to bring it back and talk to you about the first unicycle that you bought. It wasn't a large investment, was it?
No. So, I mean, I couldn't even ride a unicycle. This is the sort of ridiculousness of my story, I guess. And I'll just jump back to you sort of talking about how people come back to cycling. And occasionally, you know, we get reminded of our own mortality in life, or we have a bit of a life shock, or something kind of wakes us up. We get divorced. I don't know. It's lots of different things for different people, but we sort of get that reminder that, hey, we're only here for a short time and we kind of need to make the most of it. And for a lot of people, that means going back to things that we loved doing as kids, and especially cycling. But the unicycle story for me was a kind of a weird one in a way. I went through a pretty tough life period, where I had sort of a bit of trauma going on in my life, and I almost committed suicide as a result of that. And it was after that I sort of went, well, I'm still alive, I may as well try and celebrate with doing something a bit epic. I think psychologists now recognise it and they call it post-traumatic growth. So a lot of people go through some trauma in their life and that spurs them on to do some interesting things. And so that's what happened to me. But how I first came across unicycles was in about 2004 with a work colleague who saw one for sale on a bulletin board at work. And it was secondhand. It was about $10 or something. And she emailed me and she said, oh, you're one of the few people that I know that would be persistent enough to have a go at this. Do you want me to buy it? And I said, yeah, sure. Okay. So, you know, $10 later or whatever it was, I was the proud owner of the unicycle, except it then sat in her car for about the next 10 years. So even though I owned a unicycle, I didn't, it wasn't actually in my possession, and I just certainly didn't have a go at riding it. So.
And I think there's a number of things, having, you know, read your story and learnt and so forth, that just, I think, are great fodder for conversation. And it really amazed me. And I think one of the first things was a real lack of appreciation on my behalf around the time it takes to master the skill of riding a unicycle. It's not something that you pick up and you know, commit a good afternoon, and by the afternoon you're doing laps.
Look, I think if you were an Olympic gymnast or a Cirque du Soleil acrobat or a professional dancer, I think you'd probably pick it up in about 3 hours, because you'd have the...
I'm none of those 3.
That's right. And I wasn't either when I started to learn. And of course, one of the biggest challenges too is, as a cyclist, you think that those skills will translate to unicycling, and they don't. The only thing common between two-wheel cycling and unicycling is kind of look where you want to go. That's about it. And a lot of two-wheel cyclists who try unicycling, once they've kind of got moving a bit, they can't understand why they can only sort of ride 50 metres and their legs have blown up. So there's nothing that translates from two-wheel cycling to unicycling. It's really quite different. But I think if you have very strong core and you naturally have sort of good balance, you might be able to learn in a couple of hours. But for me, I didn't have any core. I thought that I had good balance. But the weird thing about it is it's the first thing that I've ever learnt that I couldn't think my way into learning.
Yeah, right.
So my body had to teach itself. And the way that it did that was me just being on the bike and my body learning the feedback from how I moved. I couldn't actually think my way into learning it.
Yeah, cool. I think one of the things you talk about, 2015, has been the year that you obviously faced significant challenges, and then you decided to celebrate after that. And when I look at the time it took you to master the riding of the unicycle, and I go, how cool that you gave yourself the permission, that it didn't need to be an immediate fix. It wasn't as though that you would, go to Bali for a yoga retreat and find yourself, this goal was satisfied, that you'd celebrated in your words. You took 12 months to learn to become proficient on the unicycle.
Yeah, it just took me a long time to learn, and I was really committed to it. And I don't know if you know the story about how I actually got committed to it, because even though I decided that I was going to do this whole unicycle ride, my commitment kind of for the first year was demonstrated by me pulling it out on a Saturday morning, trying to sit on it for 5 minutes, and then going, wow, that was a bit hard, and then putting it back in the shed.
Yeah.
And so clearly I was never going to be able to learn to ride it with that effort. So I said to one of my friends, what's going to make me really commit to this decision? And they ridiculously said, why don't you get a tattoo with something around your trip? And I said, wow, then I'd really have to do it. And they said, well, are you going to do it or not? So I ended up with this. It was quite a large tattoo, actually, which is on my...
It's quite epic. It looks very, very cool.
Yeah, it kind of covers half of my leg, and they were a bit surprised about how big it was. But, as soon as I got that tattoo, and I wouldn't suggest that everybody goes out and gets a tattoo to commit.
Yeah.
But for me, having that tattoo was like, wow, now I've got this. I don't want to be one of those, things you regret on Facebook kind of people. So I better go out and do this. So as soon as I had that tattoo, then my commitment just blew up. And I really put a lot of effort and time and attention into learning. And I've got some interesting stories about how I learned too. I'm not sure if you want to hear those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so like I said, it's the only thing I've ever done where you can't think your way in. You just have to actually sit on it and get your body used to what it feels like. And the first time you get on it, it actually feels like you're going to die. The instability is like nothing you've ever experienced. I was living in Brisbane for 6 months, and I was kind of living in a hotel for a while, and I was trying to work out how to practice, and I ended up finding one of the housekeepers from the hotel who agreed to kind of be a shoulder for me to hold.
Yeah.
So a couple of times a week, I used to pay him to kind of come and be my shoulder for an hour. And he found a bike track for me, and we'd go down there and I'd hold his shoulder, and then I'd try and ride along, sort of hanging onto his shoulder. He was a lovely South Korean guy, and when I rode the length of South Korea, I ended up catching up with him again. So it was really
cool.
It was really nice to kind of come full loop on that story.
Hey, it's a really cool metaphor for life, isn't it? That we all need a shoulder to lean on at different times.
Yeah, that's true. I just was stuck in how to progress, and kind of holding his shoulder gave me a sense of security. But then what happened with my progress, I could ride next to handrails, and I think I participated in a raise money for kids with cancer riding program the first year, and I rode 200 kilometres on the unicycle, but I rode all of it next to handrail. I did 211 laps of my local park.
Yeah.
riding next to the handrail because I didn't need to touch the handrail to ride, but I was kind of mentally trapped, and I couldn't actually ride away from the handrail because I felt if I did, there was going to be certain death. So the big challenge for me became about how to ride away from the handrail, because that was kind of keeping me stuck. So I rang up a friend of mine one day and I said, right, that's it. Bring your phone. I'm going to ride across the park. So she did, and I rode about 300 metres across the park away from the handrail. And that was kind of, I guess, my first real free ride. And then everything just improved from there.
And again, it's that a metaphor of the courage to let go of the handrail and see what happens.
Yeah, that's it. But of course, once I'd mastered riding away from the handrail, if I was going to do long trips, then I had to master bigger unicycles. And what I didn't know at the time when I decided to kind of do this epic ride, I had no idea about what the universe of unicycles looked like. And all I'd had in my head was the little 20-inch wheel that everyone kind of associates clowns and things like that with. But if you saw Samuel Johnson's trip, you'd know that unicycles actually can come in all different sizes.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things on your website, and I want to ask you that. But first off, if I can just draw your attention to the footage there, Kel, and get a comment. How's that road looking? Despite the heavy traffic that's on the road there today, how's that road looking for a unicyclist travelling the length of Thailand?
That looks amazing. Yeah, that looks fantastic. It's
So you've got the Gulf of Thailand on the left as we head down, and we're heading south as we ride at the moment, and this is part of the ride that we do. But so if I'm wanting to promote Thailand to you, to add on to your trip around the world, and I'll come back to that, but you brought up a point around the unicycles come in various sizes. And on your website, which is onewheelonly.com, one of the things I loved was when you talked about people who might want to give this a go. And you said that Audi in the middle aisle, which I've only just recently found, once a year sell unicycles. But your advice was not to buy it from there. What was your advice?
Yeah, so if you just wait about a week or 2 weeks after the Aldi sales, there'll be thousands at half price on eBay or Gumtree or something. And so people see them in Aldi and go, oh yeah, I could do that. That's a really good idea, and then buy them, and then try and sit on them the first time and go through that, feel like you're going to die instability, and think, oh no, actually it's a bit harder than I thought. So if you just wait for a week after the Aldi sale, you'll be able to get them all at half price.
Yeah, I love that. And don't pay any more than $30, you said.
Yeah, that's it. Unless you're really, really committed to it. $30 is kind of the max. Grab one, have a go, realize it's hard. Yeah.
You might want to find out that you can actually do it before you become committed, or you do what you do and commit and then learn how to do it, yeah?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. But yeah, I just encourage everyone to try and have a go, because it does amazing things, obviously, for your balance and your flexibility. So
you set yourself this audacious goal that ended up on the back of your leg in the tattoo, and it was to ride a unicycle around the world, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of how it started, to unicycle around the world. And so I just set off then doing this big project, which had to start, of course, with actually learning how to unicycle. And looking at, how was I going to carry gear? That was sort of the next challenge. Where was I going to ride? How was some of that stuff going to work? So I started to go through some of that process. I don't know if you've heard of Lucy Barnard. She's an Australian woman. Yeah, she's currently walking the length of the world, and she became a little bit of a mentor for me. And one of the things that she said to me before she went on her trip was, oh, now just make sure that you don't meet anyone and fall in love.
Yeah. And so you did that. You went and fell in love, and
exactly.
your plans changed.
That's exactly it. And when I spoke to Lucy about that, I said, look, I'm feeling a bit concerned about, I wanted to do this big, massive trip, and now I've met someone and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And she kind of gave me permission, which was ridiculous, because of course I could have given myself permission to change how I was going to do that ride. She said, yeah, it's your trip. You just do it however you like. So I kind of had to weigh up, what would I regret more? Would I regret sort of riding off into the sunset for 3.5 years, or would I regret, not doing that trip? And I decided to change that goal to, now I'm just going to do kind of a couple of trips every year, one trip every year, until I eventually kind of ride, the distance of around the world.
Yeah. And you talk about like embarking on this journey, and I love that, again, you got to the place and with the counsellor, Lucy, that said, you know what, it is my journey, and I can change it, and I don't have to live to the expectations or whatever from someone else.
Yeah, that's it. And like I said, I think it was just ridiculous that I couldn't give myself permission to do that, because I had said in my head, and I had the tattoo, but the tattoo kind of is an interesting story in itself, I suppose. But I kind of committed to this massively big goal, and then I had to decide to change it. And in reality, it's my goal. Of course, I could change it. And so I decided to, and now that's sort of then how I came about, just to do these individual little rides.
Yeah, and it's not just the change of the goal, it was a change of yourself, physically and mentally, and on all those levels. And you talk about that what you had to change first was to work on the inside. Share with me what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, I was a public servant accountant for sort of 20 years. So that was my identity. But if I wanted to unicycle the world, a career public servant wasn't going to do that. So I basically had to take on a bit of a new identity, which was an athlete identity. And I had a piece of paper that I stuck to my TV, which said, I'm in training, I'm at Olympic training camp. And of course I wasn't, and I never would be. But for me, it was about reminding myself, don't sit down and watch TV because you've got trip planning to do, or you've got exercise to do. It even influenced things like how I dressed, what I wore, how I presented. So I stopped looking like a public servant and started sort of dressing a bit more sportily. But the whole point of that identity stuff was really to influence my actions. Because there was a lot of training and a lot of fitness that I had to do to move from, an overweight accountant to someone that could ride a unicycle long distances. So that identity stuff was really quite powerful for me in moving from that sort of accountant identity into one of fitness.
And was that more important, do you think, for how you perceived others and how they viewed you, or you didn't give a shit about what they thought? It was just internally how you saw yourself. Yeah,
look, that was really interesting, because when I first started on this journey, I was embarrassed to tell people about it. And I was embarrassed to tell people about it because I didn't believe myself that I could do it. So once I got that tattoo, then I was absolutely committed to doing it. Trying to say to people, oh yeah, I'm going to ride a unicycle around the world, and people would say, oh, how long have you been riding for? Oh, 4 weeks, I can't ride yet. Kind of sounds you sound like a bit of an oddball. And that was actually my biggest challenge, was not telling people, because I didn't at first believe I could do it. So getting that tattoo really kind of absolutely committed me then to, yes, I'm going to do this. And then over time, of course, I learned how to do it and sort of grew into that identity, if you like. And it wasn't until I did my first sort of trip in Taiwan, because I wasn't sure whether I could do it. And after
Yeah.
I did my first long distance trip, which was riding the length of Taiwan in 2018, then I think I gave myself permission to be that athlete because I could do it.
Yeah.
And I sort of
And
demonstrated.
what point did you go from being an accountant to an athlete? And what do you put on your immigration card when you arrive and leave different countries now? When it says occupation, what does Kelly Jackson put down?
Yeah, I put unicyclist actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still do. I still have sort of ducked in and out of public service work. Because
Well, we all got to pay the bills, don't we?
Exactly. Unicycling doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't believe that I could do it at first, and I didn't really believe I was an athlete. But like I said, as soon as I got that tattoo, I had this extreme commitment to the goal, and then I started to learn, and then of course I could ride it.
Yep.
But the credibility point for me was that I'd never ridden on the road.
Yep.
I'd never ridden with luggage, and I'd never ridden more than about 50 kilometres.
Yeah.
So an opportunity came up for me to ride in Taiwan.
Yeah.
You happy for me to kind of chat quickly about how that eventuated?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So my partner was heading to Taiwan, and I think that sort of sneakily wanted some company. And this was before I decided to change my trip, actually. And they sent me a link to cycling in Taiwan. And Taiwan looked like a fabulous place to bike ride. And I Googled unicycling in Taiwan. And I discovered that a group of special needs kids had unicycled around the entire island. And so I thought, well, if school kids can do it, then surely I should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I was doing the fundraising activity again, and I said to my friends on Facebook, if you can raise $2,000 for me in 24 hours, I'll go unicycle the length of Taiwan.
Yeah.
So of course, all my friends came through in about 12 hours, bang, the $2,000 was raised. And suddenly I was faced with this massive, ride the length of Taiwan on a unicycle, not ever having, ridden on the road, carried luggage, or ridden more than 50 kilometres. So I had 3 weeks to work out where I was going to ride, how I was going to carry my gear, and then to get myself over to Taiwan and actually do it. So
yeah. Like I think for those of us that ride in Thailand, we've got this amazing team from Tour Asia that are part of our family now, who take care of all of the stuff that I reckon it'd be the stuff that keeps you awake at night. It's, getting to the route, it's the accommodation, it's if something goes wrong with my bike, and, actually riding becomes the easiest part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Although I guess I'm luckier because I've only got one wheel and no chain. So maintenance a bit easier on the unicycle.
And I think, I started by saying, we put some photos up of you and the bike it's a unicycle, isn't it? It's not a bike.
Yeah.
Bike means it's wheels, yeah? So the uni. So I put some photos up, and just the size of that thing, I think, unless you see it, it'd be hard to appreciate, that the getting on and off and going up and down inclines. Can you share with us how you manage up and down hills and so forth?
Yeah, I'll talk about getting on it first, because that's one of the things I'm still challenged by. There's a term called free mounting on unicycles, and free mounting means you can, there's about 10 different ways you can get up onto a unicycle without holding anything. And I can't do any of those 10 ways. They are quite challenging, and some of them kind of involve just sort of taking a bit of a running jump off the pedals and getting up and riding off. So my challenge on all my rides has been that I can't free mount. So I always need to find something to hold on. And on my various trips, that's ranged from a police car, a man's shoulders, fences, fences, signs, bridges, you know, all sorts of unusual things to hang on to. But when you've got a bit of luggage on the unicycle, it really changes the dynamic of the weight and the ride as well. It's really quite difficult. And even getting up, just getting up before you start riding is pretty tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, going up hills isn't too bad. You can kind of zigzag a little bit. If it's not too steep, it's really just pure grunt power.
Yeah.
You just kind of push and make your way up. It seems to be easier than two-wheel cycling, actually, going uphill.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's too steep, I just have to get off and walk. So I've spent quite a bit of time just walking the unicycle up some pretty big hills.
We've all done it.
Yeah. Coming downhill is challenging too, because there's so much more distance between you and the road, because you're up so much higher than on a normal bike.
Yeah.
And because you're upright rather than facing down with the slope of the road. I do have a brake on the uni.
Yep.
I do have a disc brake. So
and is that a hand brake or a foot brake, or how does that?
Yeah, it's a little hand disc brake. Of course, you don't want to grab it too hard, otherwise you'll immediately face plant.
Yeah.
But if you just apply really light pressure to it, it's just kind of enough to slow you down a bit. I've got some unis without brakes as well. So the trick to managing your speed is you don't actually pedal, you kind of push a bit backwards, and that kind of controls the speed at which you go down.
Yeah, sure. So, you can see we're back on the busy roads again in Thailand there, Kel, and you can just see the horrible conditions that we ride in Thailand. You know, like it's the roads are so good. And a big part of it is the work that's done by our team in selecting the routes. But I think it's something that's understood by cyclists that whether you're on one or two wheels, it's just an experience you have to experience to really understand the joys of cycling in foreign countries.
Yeah, that's it. When I was riding in Taiwan, actually, I spent a bit of time in those 3 weeks before when I decided and when I got there, looking on Google Maps. I just wanted to make sure that there were actually kind of things along the way that I could hold on to free out with. And trying to work out which route I was going to take. And when I got over there, I ended up going on the main freeway that runs right down the kind of west of Taiwan. And I found myself mostly in a scooter lane with sort of a million scooters. But often the road would just run out. So I'd have to kind of detour back and, cut through little villages and just try and find different routes on the run. So you're lucky that you've got sort of some of your routes sorted. But certainly there's those interesting challenges when you're overseas riding.
And there's so much more information on your website, which is One Wheel Only. And but you recently, or one of your last big trips, was South and North Korea.
Yeah, so after I rode Taiwan, I kind of, then I had a bit of credibility, I could do it, I had done it. So then I thought, well, where's another good place in Asia? Actually, what I did was I Googled flat, no wind places to cycle.
Send me the link.
And South Korea came up because it's got a sort of bike path that almost goes from north to south. So I decided to go ride that. And then I thought, while I was over there, I wondered if anyone had actually unicycled in North Korea. That was an odd question that popped into my head. So I started Googling that. I couldn't find anyone that had unicycled in North Korea. So I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to be the first person in the world to unicycle in North Korea? So, I went and rode the whole of South Korea, and then I popped over into North Korea as well. But that was a bit more challenging because 4 days before I went in, they said to me, no, you can't bring it in. You can't bring the unicycle. So I had to go through a bit of negotiation, and then they told me I could only ride it in the car parks.
Right.
So I didn't actually get to do any decent riding in North Korea, but I rode around a lot of car parks.
Yeah. Well, it's still part of the story, isn't it? Like if you leave the car park out, it's still, well, I rode a unicycle in North Korea.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Kel, we're about to finish up, but what I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts on is that we all have dreams and ambitions, and some of them we publicly talk about and some we don't. And the reason we don't share and talk about some of them is the fear of what other people will say. And, I think you're such an amazing example of someone who's put your ambitions and dreams on your leg and quite literally put it out in public and lived it. And I'm sure that there'd be times where you went, can I, should I? Mm-hmm. Love came in, challenged it. What's your advice to all of us who are listening and who might have those dreams living inside, but we find reasons and excuses not to?
Yeah, I think you just have to separate out actual risk versus stuff that's in your head.
Yeah.
And you've got to deal with real risk, like safety when you're riding and that kind of thing. So for me, I had to separate out the fears around what will people think of me, which is just stuff in my head. And really, it doesn't matter what people think, it's your life. So my advice would be, if there's something you really want to do, like do it, because you only get to be here once on the earth.
Yeah.
When you get close to death, like I said, there's other things that remind us of our own mortality. And sometimes that's the impetus we need to decide, you know what, I actually should go do this thing. So my advice is, go and do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think, Kelli Jackson, you have given us a lot of inspiration and, the courage to do something that perhaps we hadn't done before. And whether that's now or in the future, I'm sure your story will sit with people around saying yes more often than no. So thanks for joining us in the Zoom room today as we ride down Thailand, and the invitation remains open to come and join us on these roads when your travels take you to Thailand.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Peter. I really enjoyed the conversation, and the ride looks absolutely amazing, I have to say. Yeah, I might have to get the uni out and do it with you. More
than welcome. Over to you, CT.
Thanks, Pete and Kelly. What an amazing chat that was. I know there's many that can relate to your story, Kelly, and you're just a true inspiration. So thank you for joining us this morning and sharing. We've had a few thank yous from the group. Susan says the 45 minutes melted away. So how awesome that we're able to punch through those Ks hearing your amazing story. Pete certainly likes to sell the rides. He just warning you, he won't let up on that one. So just putting that out there. But well done, team. You've come to the end of another day and another 25 kilometres. So just remember to jump on and log your Ks on My Virtual Mission. Again, you can see where you are on the map of Thailand as you make your way down. So make sure you jump into the app and have a look and see where you are on Street View. It's pretty cool. Also, please tag Hands Across the Water whenever you're posting your pics. We'd really love to see them and share within the community. And tomorrow morning, we're going to be joined by Tomo again, who's going to be interviewing Troy Satch, who he's going to go down in history as one of the most talented athletes that wheelchair basketball has ever seen. A phenomenal human being, and will be sharing his story. He'll be sharing his story in the morning. And then at 12 tomorrow will be the first of our Friday Funnies with one of Australia's best comedians, Vince Sorrenti. So we'll be, Pete will be bantering with Vince to get us through 25Ks tomorrow. And we're looking forward to that. So for now, well done today. Thank you for jumping in and being part of this experience, and we'll look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a great day.
See you, everyone. Swadee Cup.